Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and you're watching News Night on DD India, your prime-time destination for news and bespoke analysis. It's good to see you again. Now, as you can see, I am wearing a mask. So should you at all times, even at home. Why? Because wherever you are in the world, now is not the time to be adventurous. Now is the time to be abundantly cautious. All right. On the show tonight, the Indian government takes key decisions to boost availability of medical personnel to fight COVID-19. It's incentivized the induction of medical interns, final year MBBS students and students of nursing in order to make up for a shortfall in critical human resource to tackle the second wave of the pandemic in India. We'll get you more on that. Also on the show, we preview the India-UK Leaders Summit, which will take place via video conference on Tuesday. And no end to bloodshed in Myanmar. At least 7 more pro-democracy activists are killed after the military opens fire on them to quell some of the biggest protests seen to date. Plus, news and updates from India and the world. All that and much, much more coming up over the next 1 hour. But first, as always, the headlines. Prime Minister Modi chairs a COVID-19 review meeting, takes a number of key decisions to tackle the pandemic. NEET PG exam postponed for at least 4 months, approves extra medical personnel to augment human resource. Indian Railways continues ferrying liquid medical oxygen to various states. 20 oxygen express trains deliver a total of 1,125 metric tons of liquid oxygen. Government waives IGST on import of COVID-19 relief material. Central government dismisses media reports about it not placing a fresh order for COVID-19 vaccine as completely incorrect. Serum Institute of India's CEO clarifies, says the company has been working closely with the government, adds that the company will supply 110 million more vaccines over the next few months on top of what has already been supplied. Government has given states and union territories more than 165 million vaccine doses free of cost. Says states and UTs have stocks of over 7.5 million vaccines, another 5.9 million doses to be shared over the next 3 days. Many states extend lockdown restrictions to break the chain of coronavirus transmission. Vaccination of 18 to 44-year-olds on in some states. All offline examinations that were to be held this month stand postponed. India's fight against the pandemic continues. More than 300,000 people recover in the last 24 hours. The death rate drops to 1%. So far, 157 million people have been vaccinated and over 291 million tests conducted. Prime Minister Modi speaks to European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen ahead of the upcoming EU-India summit. They discuss about the COVID pandemic in India and Europe. PM Modi told a virtual summit with UK PM Boris Johnson on Tuesday. West Bengal governor summons the police chief after post-poll violence in the state, instructs officials to restore law and order. State BJP chief submits a memorandum to the governor, seeks action against culprits. Union Home Ministry seeks a report from the West Bengal government. And Mamata Banerjee to take the oath as West Bengal Chief Minister on 5th May. Assam Chief Minister Sarbananda Sonowal thanks people for the BJP win in the state. Assam Congress Chief resigns. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister E. Palanisamy submits his resignation. victorious DMK leader MK Stalin to meet party lawmakers on Tuesday. Right, let me dive straight into our cover story. The central government authorizes key decisions to boost availability of medical personnel to fight COVID-19. Now, medical interns will be deployed on COVID management duty under the supervision of a faculty. That's not all. Final year MBBS students can be utilized for tele-consultation and monitoring of mild COVID cases under supervision of a faculty. And BSc and general nursing and midwifery qualified nurses would be put on full-time COVID duty under the supervision of senior doctors and nurses. The government, meanwhile, postponed the NEET PG exam for at least 4 months to allow for induction of more medical personnel. As an incentive, medical personnel completing 100 days of COVID duty will be given priority in forthcoming regular government recruitment. Also, those completing 100 days of COVID duty will get the Prime Minister's Distinguished COVID National Service Award.
Doctors, nurses and allied professionals form the backbone of COVID management and are also the frontline personnel. Their presence in adequate strength is critical to address the needs of patients as well. The NDA government has taken many important decisions which will boost availability of medical personnel in COVID duty. Prime Minister has reviewed the growing need of adequate human resources for responding to the COVID-19 pandemic on Monday. Many important decisions were taken in the meeting. A decision was taken to postpone the NEET PG exams for at least 4 months. The exams will not be held before 31st of August this year. This will make a large number of qualified doctors available for COVID duties. It was also decided in the meeting to allow deployment of medical interns in COVID management duties under the supervision of their faculty as part of the internship rotation. The services of final year MBBS students can be utilized for providing services like teleconsultation and monitoring of mild COVID cases after due orientation by and under supervision of faculty. The services of final year PG students as residents may continue to be utilized until fresh batches of PG students have joined. BSc GNM qualified nurses may be utilized in full-time COVID nursing duties under the supervision of senior doctors and nurses.
प्रधानमंत्री जी के लेवल पर ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज, मेडिकल जो हमारे रिसोर्सेज हैं उनको कैसे और बढ़ाया जाए ताकि हम कोविड-19 मैनेजमेंट के जिस तरह से बढ़ते हुए केसेस हमारे सामने हैं उसको मैनेज कर सकें, उसके अंतर्गत कई निर्णय लिए गए हैं, जिसमें मुख्य निर्णय है कि जो नीट और पीजी का एग्ज़ाम है इसको कम से कम 4 महीने के लिए पोस्टपोन किया जाएगा, यानी कि यह 31 अगस्त से पहले नहीं किए जाएंगे.
The individuals providing services in COVID management will be given priority in forthcoming regular government recruitments after they complete a minimum of 100 days on COVID duty. All health professionals thus engaged will be covered under the insurance scheme of the government for health workers engaged in fighting COVID-19. All such professionals who sign up for minimum 100 days of COVID duty and complete it successfully will be given the Prime Minister's Distinguished COVID National Service Samman from Government of India. The vacant posts of doctors, nurses, allied professionals in health and medical departments may be filled through accelerated processes within 45 days through contractual appointments based on NHM norms.
वह हमारे मेडिकल कर्मी जो आज एक ऐसी सेवा देश के लिए कर रहे हैं, जो प्राण बचाने के लिए अपने प्राण को भी, अपनी आप को भी ऑन द लाइन ऑफ ड्यूटी खतरे में डाल के काम कर रहे हैं, उनको सम्मान देने के लिए जो भी आदमी 100 दिन कोविड ड्यूटी करेंगे उनको प्राइम मिनिस्टर डिस्टिंग्विश्ड कोविड नेशनल सर्विस सम्मान से सम्मानित किया जाएगा. साथ ही उनको आने वाले किसी मेडिकल रिक्रूटमेंट में भी प्रायोरिटी दी जाएगी.
Meanwhile, overcoming all hurdles and finding new solutions, Indian Railways is continuing its journey of bringing relief by delivering liquid medical oxygen to various states across the country. So far, Railways has delivered approximately 1,125 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen in 76 tankers to various states. 20 oxygen expresses have already completed their journey and 7 more loaded oxygen expresses are on the run carrying approximately 422 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen in 27 tankers. third oxygen express to Delhi carrying 120 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen is on its way from Durgapur and will reach Delhi on 4th of May. Telangana will receive its second oxygen express from Odisha carrying 60.23 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen. Haryana will receive its fourth and fifth oxygen express carrying nearly 72 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen from Odisha. Another oxygen express with 85 tons is on its way from Gujarat and will reach Gurgaon. 7 oxygen expresses are on their way to Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Telangana, Haryana and Delhi carrying about 422 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen. Further, the centre has now said that foolproof arrangements are being done to ensure that the oxygen tankers are tracked to avoid any delay, and colour coding is also being done to tackle the menace of black marketing.
जो टैंकर्स पहले क्या होता था अपने प्रोडक्शन साइट से चले और रास्ते में हमें कुछ पता नहीं चलता था कि वो कहाँ हैं जब तक कि वो गंतव्य स्थान तक ना पहुँच जाएं। तो इसके लिए सभी अगेन स्टेट्स और यूनियन टेरिटरीज से डिस्कस करके एक जीपीएस टैगिंग का रियल टाइम ट्रैकिंग सिस्टम डेवलप किया गया है और अब वो लगभग अच्छी तरह से सुचारू रूप से कार्य कर रहा है। आज ही भी हमने उसकी देखी रिपोर्ट जिसमें हमें सुबह सब दिख रहा था कि कौन सा टैंकर जो कहाँ से चला और कहाँ पे है। उसमें कलर कोडिंग भी करी गई है कि अगर कोई टैंकर मूव कर रहा है तो अलग कलर में दिखता है, कोई रुका हुआ है तो अलग, और अगर कोई टैंकर अपने रूट से जरा भी डाइवर्ट करता है या अनऑथराइज्ड स्टॉप करता है तो वो तुरंत फ्लैश हो जाता है।
Further, the central government has issued notifications exempting basic customs duty and health cess on imports of a number of COVID-19 related relief materials for a limited period. These include remdesivir injection and beta-cyclodextrin inflammatory diagnostic kits till 31st October 2021. Medical grade oxygen, oxygen therapy related equipment such as oxygen concentrators, cryogenic transport tanks and COVID-19 vaccines till 31st July this year. Central government has also granted exemption from IGST on import of COVID-19 relief material which are received free of cost for free distribution for COVID relief. The centre has meanwhile refuted media reports alleging that it has not placed any fresh orders for COVID-19 vaccines. Centre has said that the media reports are completely incorrect and are not based on facts.
मैं आप लोगों की दृष्टि में लाना चाहूँगा कि हमारा जो सेकंड लास्ट ऑर्डर था वह 100 मिलियन, जैसे कि आपने बताया, 10 करोड़ डोजेज सीरम के साथ था और 2 करोड़ डोजेज भारत बायोटेक के साथ था। उसके अलावा हम लोगों ने 100% एडवांस देते हुए 1732 करोड़ रुपए हमने सीरम इंस्टीट्यूट को नेक्स्ट 11 करोड़ डोजेज के लिए रिलीज भी कर दिया था, जो कि 28 तारीख को रिलीज हो गया था, जिसमें कि हमने मई, जून और जुलाई की वैक्सीन का उनको ऑर्डर प्लेस किया है। इसी तरीके से 10 करोड़ कोविशील्ड के जो हमें अभी तक पिछले ऑर्डर जो हमने बताया ना आपने 10 करोड़ का था, उसमें से 8.74 करोड़ हमें रिसीव भी हुई हैं। साथ ही भारत बायोटेक के लिए भी 787 करोड़ 787 करोड़ 100% एडवांस के रूप में हमने 5 करोड़ डोजेस के लिए कोवैक्सीन के लिए मई, जून और जुलाई के लिए रिलीज कर दिया, जो उनको रिसीव भी हो चुका है। मेरी आप सबके द्वारा सबसे विनती है कि भ्रांतियों से बचें। जैसे हम कहते हैं मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन और पैनिक, ये सिस्टम की एग्नी को बढ़ा रहा है।
As on 2nd of May, the Government of India has provided more than 16.54 crore vaccine doses to states and union territories free of cost. Government has clarified that it will continue to procure its share of 50% of the monthly Central Drugs Laboratory cleared vaccines and would continue to make it available to the state governments totally free of cost as was being done earlier. It's clear that Centre is not leaving any stone unturned to ensure that India fights the pandemic with all its might and the nation gets the vaccines, oxygen supplies and other necessary equipment required to win the war against the deadly virus. Bureau Report, DD India.
Right, moving on, the Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Karambir Singh, called on PM Modi this morning. He briefed the PM about various initiatives being taken by the Indian Navy to assist the countrymen in the pandemic. He informed the PM that the Indian Navy has reached out to all state administrations and has offered help in terms of hospital beds, transportation and other such things. He apprised the PM about naval hospitals being open for use for civilians in some cities. He also informed the PM that medical personnel in the Indian Navy have been redeployed at various locations in the country to manage the COVID duties. Naval personnel are being provided battlefield nursing assistant training to be deployed in COVID duties as well. Admiral Singh briefed the PM that the Navy is helping increase oxygen supplies and availability in Lakshadweep as well as the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. He apprised the PM that the Indian Navy is transporting oxygen containers as well as other supplies from Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait and Singapore to India. Moving on, in other news, Serum Institute of India's CEO Adar Poonawalla has clarified that vaccine manufacturing is a specialized process and that it is not possible to ramp up production overnight. He said in a statement that the population of India is huge and therefore producing a vaccine for all is not an easy task. He said every other country is struggling relatively in a smaller population. He said his company is working with the Indian government and it has got all kinds of support including finance. He said his firm has received an order for 260 million doses from the government. Another 110 million doses will be delivered to the government in the next few months. Poonawalla said his company is making every effort to make vaccines available to all. The government has provided nearly 165 million vaccine doses to states and UTs free of cost as on Monday. Now, of this, the total consumption, including wastage, is over 157 million doses. The Health Ministry said more than 7.5 million COVID vaccine doses are still available with the states and UTs. Furthermore, more than 5.97 million vaccine doses will be given to the states and UTs within the next 3 days.
1 तारीख से हमारा नया प्रोसेस शुरू होना था जिसमें कि स्टेट स्थाई पर और प्राइवेट सेक्टर के लेवल पर भी वैक्सीनेशन 18 से 44 साल के लोगों को हम कवर कर सकें। उसने इनिशियल बिगनिंग की है। करीब 18 लाख लोगों को उसमें वैक्सीनेशन के लिए कवर किया गया है और धीरे धीरे इस स्थिति में भी हम एक गति पाएंगे।
And addressing the media on Monday, All India Institute of Medical Sciences Director Dr. Randeep Guleria said unnecessary CT scans must be avoided in all mild COVID cases. Calling them a panic reaction, Dr. Guleria said repeated CT scans can be harmful since they are side effects of exposing oneself to radiation.
तो अगर हम देखें तो CT स्कैन आजकल बहुत ज़्यादा लोग करा रहे हैं और ये सोचते हैं कि जब भी उनकी कोविड पॉजिटिव रिपोर्ट आई तो एकदम CT करा लें। सबसे मैं पहले ये कहना चाहूँगा कि शुरू में CT कराने का कोई फ़ायदा नहीं है। माइल्ड जो आपको अगर इन्फेक्शन है, माइल्ड कोविड है, तो CT से कोई फ़ायदा नहीं है। CT में कुछ पैचेस आएंगे। कई स्टडीज़ हुई हैं, एक स्टडी हुई है जिन्होंने एसिम्प्टोमेटिक लोगों में CT देखा और ये पाया कि 30 से 40% एसिम्प्टोमेटिक लोग जिनको कोई लक्षण नहीं है, सिर्फ उनका कोविड पॉजिटिव है, उनके CT में भी कुछ पैचेस आते हैं और वो अपने आप बिना ट्रीटमेंट के ख़त्म हो जाते हैं। दूसरा, इसका नुकसान समझने की ज़रूरत है। अगर हम एक CT कराते हैं, इट इज़ इक्विवेलेंट टू ऑलमोस्ट 300 to 400 चेस्ट एक्सरेज कि बार बार स्पेशली यंगर एज ग्रुप में CT कराने से रिस्क ऑफ कैंसर इन लेटर लाइफ इंक्रीजेज। इसलिए मैं यही कहूँगा कि अगर आपको कोई सिम्टम नहीं है, माइल्ड डिजीज़ है और सैचुरेशन ठीक है, तो प्लीज़ CT ना कराएं। CT तभी कराने की ज़रूरत पड़ती है अगर आपको मॉडरेट इलनेस है और आप हॉस्पिटल में एडमिट हो रहे हैं, और अगर डाउट हो तो पहले चेस्ट एक्सरे कराना चाहिए, उसके बाद ही CT स्कैन कराएं।
Now, states are fighting the global pandemic with all the resources at their disposal. While many states have extended their lockdown periods and launched campaigns, some states have designated journalists covering the pandemic as frontline workers.
Battle against COVID-19 continues, with states formulating their respective strategies, including lockdown, to break the chain of transmission. In UP, where the statewide weekly lockdown was effective from 30th of April, Friday, 8 p.m. night to 7 a.m. on 4th of May, has been extended by 2 more days. Medical and paramedical students are now set to join the fight against corona. In view of the pandemic, Beds are being increased in all districts of the state. Special COVID testing campaign is being launched from 5th of May to secure villages from COVID transmission or infection.
माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी के निर्देश पर दिनांक 5 मई से 9 मई के मध्य एक विशेष अभियान चलाया जा रहा है, जिसमें हमारी टीमें घर घर जाएंगी और वहां जाकर लोगों का हालचाल पूछेंगी। जो लोग ग्रामीण क्षेत्र में या शहरी क्षेत्र में जो लोग लक्षण युक्त पाए जाएंगे, जिनकी अभी जांच नहीं हुई है, उन्हें जांच करवाने के लिए प्रेरित किया जाएगा। उन्हें बताया जाएगा कि उन्हें अपनी जांच करानी चाहिए। उनका नाम पता नोट किया जाएगा और साथ ही साथ उन्हें दवा की किट भी उपलब्ध कराई जाएगी, ताकि वे अपनी दवाई शीघ्रतापूर्वक प्रारंभ कर लें।
In the national capital Delhi, lockdown has been further extended by 1 week from Monday, while in neighbouring state of Haryana, a complete lockdown for a week has been put in place.
लोगों से कहना चाहते हैं कि घर पे रहें, सुरक्षित रहें और कोरोना को हराएं। लेकिन लोगों को जिस प्रकार से कोविड के नियमों का पालन करना चाहिए था, वो लोगों ने नहीं किया। हमारी भरसक कोशिशों के बावजूद भी नहीं किया। उससे कोरोना के केसेस बहुत बढ़ गए। 1 लाख से भी ज़्यादा एक्टिव कोरोना के मरीज हो गए और लगभग 15,000 रोज़ाना उसमें और जुड़ रहे हैं। तो इसलिए हमें अब कोई चारा नहीं बचा था, इसलिए हमें ये लॉकडाउन लगाना पड़ा, क्योंकि इसकी चेन पर रोक लगाना बहुत जरूरी है।
Haryana Chief Minister Manohar Lal Khattar has said that oxygen supply has been augmented in the state.
हम लोग व्यवस्थाओं के नाते से हर चीज़ की जानकारी ले रहे हैं। जहाँ कोई कमी है उसको ठीक करने के लिए निर्देश भी दे रहे हैं। खास करके ऑक्सीजन का जो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन है वो हमारा वैसे तो कल से प्रदेश में पूरा ठीक हो गया है। जहाँ जितनी आवश्यकता है सब जगह पहुँच रही है। अब कुछ इंडिविजुअल्स को जो गैस सिलेंडर देने हैं उनकी आवश्यकता और हमको ध्यान में आ रही है। आज सब जगह कह रहे हैं कि जहाँ जहाँ अस्पतालों की आवश्यकता पूरी हो गई है, वहाँ वहाँ जो इंडिविजुअल्स हैं डॉक्टर की परामर्श के ऊपर उनको भी गैस सिलेंडर देना शुरू कर देंगे।
Due to the surge in COVID-19 cases in Odisha, it has been decided to impose a 14-day statewide lockdown. Lockdown will be in place from Wednesday and will continue till 19th of May 5 a.m. morning. In Mizoram as well, an 8-day lockdown from 3rd of May has been imposed. Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar visited several places in Patna and inquired about the COVID situation. While there has been some dip in the pace of corona transmission in the past 24 hours in Jharkhand, after several days the state has witnessed corona cases going down below 5,000. There has been a mini lockdown in place in the state for the past 10 days, and the Jharkhand government has named this as Swasthya Suraksha Saptaha, and this will continue till 6th of May, 6 in the morning. The battle against COVID pandemic is being waged in Maharashtra as well, and strict restrictions of lockdown are in place to break the chain of transmission in the state. Lockdown is underway in Karnataka as well. Chief Minister B.S. Yediyurappa held a meeting with oxygen manufacturers so that the problem of shortage of oxygen can be addressed. 24 COVID patients in the state's Chamarajnagar hospital died due to shortage of oxygen. The district administration said that this tragedy took place due to oxygen supply not reaching in time from Mysuru. The Chief Minister has ordered an inquiry into this tragedy. While strict restrictions have been put in place in several cities of Madhya Pradesh, Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan declared the accredited journalists in the state to the category of frontline workers.
हमारे पत्रकार मित्र इस कोविड के खतरनाक काल में अपनी जान जोखिम में डाल के अपने धर्म का निर्वाह कर रहे हैं, और इसलिए मध्य प्रदेश में सभी अधिमान्यता प्राप्त पत्रकारों को हमने फ्रंट लाइन वर्कर घोषित करने का फैसला किया है। उनका पूरा ध्यान रखा जाएगा, उनकी पूरी चिंता की जाएगी।
In the midst of all this, the work of vaccinating 18 to 44-year-olds in several parts of the country is going on in full swing. Several places in the capital, Delhi, saw vaccination on Monday. States like UP, Maharashtra, Odisha, Haryana are also witnessing vaccination.
वैक्सीन जो है वो 7 जिलों में पहले चरण में 7 जिले जहां पर ज़्यादा एक्टिव केसेस थे उनको चयनित करके वहां पर प्रारंभ किया गया। वैक्सीनेशन का काम कल संडे की वजह से बंद रहा। आज फिर से 19 जिलों में वैक्सीनेशन का काम चल रहा है। ये ज़िले हैं लखनऊ, कानपुर नगर, प्रयागराज, वाराणसी, मेरठ, गोरखपुर तथा बरेली।
कैबिनेट में पास किया 6,500 करोड़ का हमने अनुदान पास किया है। हम खुद जो है वैक्सीनेशन कंपनियों से बातचीत कर रहे हैं। जैसे जैसे हमारे पास वैक्सीनेशन आएगा आप देखिएगा फुल फ्लेज से हम हर जिले में हर वार्ड में जो है वो वैक्सीनेशन शुरू करेंगे।
दिल्ली सरकार के 76 स्कूलों में ये वैक्सीनेशन का प्रोग्राम शुरू हुआ है और यहाँ पर जिस तरह से आप देख रहे हैं कि इसी स्कूल में पैरेलल 5 सेंटर्स बनाए गए हैं। तो इस तरह से पूरी दिल्ली में इस वक्त आज 301 सेंटर्स पर वैक्सीनेशन का प्रोग्राम शुरू हुआ है 18 साल से 45 साल के बीच के लोगों के लिए। और क्योंकि आज पहला दिन है हम इसको और आगे बढ़ाएंगे। हमारा टारगेट है कि हर स्कूल में इस तरह से कम 10 सेंटर्स हों और अभी इसको धीरे धीरे करके हम 300 स्कूलों तक लेके जाएंगे।
Vaccination rollout is also underway in Punjab. Amritsar Rural Police has launched cab service for COVID testing of people residing in villages and border villages. This service is ensuring higher testing numbers as people are being picked up from their homes and later being dropped back at their homes in police cabs. Railways is also pitching in the battle against COVID-19 with COVID care coaches. In Nagpur, the Central Railways has handed over 11 isolation coaches to the Nagpur Municipal Corporation.
11 आइसोलेशन कोचेस किए गए हैं प्लस एक कोच डॉक्टर्स के लिए ऐसे 12 आइसोलेशन कोचेस हैं यहाँ। हर एक कोच में हमने व्यवस्था की है 2 ऑक्सीजन सिलेंडर्स। हर एक कोच में कूलिंग के लिए एयर कूलर्स लगाए हैं, 9 एयर कूलर्स लगे हैं। छत पे स्प्रिंकलर सिस्टम लगाए हैं जिससे टेम्परेचर कंट्रोल हो। हर एक कोच में 16 मरीज यहाँ एडमिट किए जा सकते हैं और वेस्ट डिस्पोजल का भी सैनिटाइजेशन एंड वेस्ट डिस्पोजल का भी अच्छी तरह से व्यवस्था की गई है।
Overall, battle against corona is being waged across the country at every level to win over the pandemic. Bureau Report, DD India.
Right, India received 125,000 vials of the antiviral drug remdesivir from the US on Sunday. Now, it's used in the treatment of COVID-19. It was the 4th such flight from the United States. The US is sending supplies worth more than $100 million to help India combat a surge in COVID-19 cases. And later on Monday, India received more COVID-19 medical supplies from Germany, Italy and the UK to ramp up its fight against the raging pandemic that has infected nearly 20 million people across the country. An aircraft carrying an oxygen production machine and 20 ventilators arrived from Italy at the Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi. The 4th consignment of medical supplies containing 60 ventilators and other COVID-19 relief aid from the UK also arrived at the airport. Meanwhile, the Indian Air Force airlifted 4 oxygen containers from Frankfurt in Germany and brought it to the Hindon Air Base in Ghaziabad. Now, the matter regarding a consignment of 3,000 oxygen concentrators lying with customs authorities came up in the Delhi High Court, and the same was clarified by the Government Council that presently no such consignment is pending with custom authorities. However, social media has been flooded with the news that 3,000 oxygen concentrators are lying with the customs. And the Ministry of Finance has assured that the same has been checked again with field formations and there is no such consignment lying with the customs. It has further said that since a photograph has also been put on Twitter, if the relevant information is shared, immediate action will be taken. All right, time now for our In Focus segment in which we are discussing about government boosting availability of medical personnel. Joining me are two very special guests, Dr. Sunil Kumar, DG Health Services, Government of India, and Lieutenant General Dr. V. Ravishankar, CEO, Medical Director and Consultant Cardiac Surgeon at Leelavati Hospital in Mumbai. Gentlemen, welcome to News Night. Dr. Kumar, if I can start with you, how acute is the human resource crunch today as the country faces this raging pandemic, number one? And number two, your thoughts on the government's decision to augment medical personnel across the country?
No, this problem of medical personnel is very important for us to fight the COVID-19 problem, which has been of a great concern to the country as well as the whole world since last 1 year. The COVID warriors, comprising of mainly the healthcare workers, have been fighting this issue since last 1 year continuously without any respite. And therefore, it is very important to augment the manpower so that we can fight it out and completely and give relief to the country as well as to the common suffering people. Therefore, this augmentation, which has been a great step taken by our Honorable Prime Minister, is a huge big step in which is going to be of great importance. It's like a milestone in the history because it's going to provide us a huge manpower, huge number of manpower who are going to be vital in fighting out the COVID-19 pandemic.
If I can come to you now, Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar. Now, you've seen the army from very close quarters. You're also a cardiac surgeon. Now, from your vantage, how do you look at today's decision to allow medical interns, final year MBBS students and students of nursing to augment the medical personnel across the country, number one? And number two, will this, to what extent will this benefit private hospitals in particular?
Yeah, good evening. The fact is, when the pandemic broke out last year, people didn't know what hit them. Right. And all of a sudden, in our own hospital, we found a lot of nurses left the institute. They went off to states like Kerala, and we were left high and dry. Over a period of time, we started recruiting the young nurses, but we had to train them. Let us not forget, in the last 1.5 years, these very staff of nurses, doctors have got very tired, frustrated. They have worked so hard. And we presume this pandemic is going to continue. There might be a third wave. So obviously, we have to look at something in the future. Now, this step of the government of augmenting the workforce is actually taken from the army. If you remember the 71 war, we were taking all the young cadets directly from NDA. We allowed them in the fourth term itself to come out. They were given a very short training, put on uniform, and they played such a vital role. Many of them won Paramveer Chakras. So that is how the government probably has got this idea also. And this is on a war footing. This is actually a war. So I presume that when we take these young doctors who are waiting to give their PG exam, if we allow them to work for a year and say that we'll give you a certificate at the end, plus there are some incentives that those who don't get PG this year will get next year. The biggest problem is the nurses. And like everybody says, the workforce is the nurse. The nursing care has to be the exemplary. And this is where the young girls who are studying for the exam can be pulled into the hospitals.
Indeed.
We can tell them that you work for a year, we'll give you a degree. And if you get a government job, like what I think Dr. Devi Shetty had proposed in one of the meetings very recently, and I think that's a very good step. One other thing which I'd like to tell you is, we have a lot of Ayush doctors who've done Ayurveda, homeopathy, and who are available. Like in Leelavati, we just advertised to see the response. We got response from the Ayush doctors, from BDS, from perfusion technologists, and what I have called them is a medical transcriptor. The biggest problem today in the COVID ward and ICU is getting a discharge summary made on time. Communication, the relatives are not able to communicate with the consultants, they're not able to communicate with the nurses. So these are the people who are helping us. They're given a mobile and we can keep in touch with them. The next workforce is the people who do various diploma courses. Even in our hospital, we have diploma courses which are not recognized. Now, if we recognize them, these very people will be more than willing to work in COVID areas.
Indeed. Dr. Kumar, General Ravi Shankar seems to suggest that this is a war by every sense of the word. Now, from your vantage as the DGHS, how crucial this synergy between the civilian and the military side of combating the pandemic, number one, and number two, your thoughts on the oxygen supply situation in the country as we speak, given the fact that we're having some logistical issues transporting the shipment from the northeast part of the country to other states.
Well, as far as the warlike situation is concerned, there is no doubt about it that the situation is very alarming, and it is a really war kind of a situation, especially this year. This year, the pandemic has taken a very high surge, very acute kind of a curve upward, and therefore there is no doubt that it is a warlike situation. The way it is spreading fast, the infectivity rate is very high. The mortality rate was also reasonably high. The duration of the hospital stay was also significantly high. The overall effect on the community, the way it spread, it involves rapidly almost the entire country. It engulfed. And the arrival of the mutant virus also created a warlike situation, and therefore we have seen this, and therefore it is very important that the civilian as well as the army as well as any other group which can add to the fighting capability of the government, of the public itself, of the society, as such as of the nation itself, is a great welcome. And this we have to also look into look towards the community itself, the people themselves. They have to behave in the manner so that the COVID does not spread. And we also have to look towards the to measures to implement certain measures, or to place some measures which can deter the people if they are not following the COVID appropriate behavior, although they should be disciplined themselves. So it is an all-out kind of a situation where we need to cut, or we need to stop the spread of the infection. We need to break the chain by means of all kind of means, especially the vaccination or restricted movements, or maybe by enforced COVID appropriate behavior. So that's one. So therefore, it is an all-out kind of a situation where everybody has to contribute: the planners, the enforcement people, the common people who have to understand the importance of the whole thing, the medical fraternity, the administrators, the bureaucrats. Everybody has to chip in, and their contribution cannot be weighed, cannot be taken as small. Everybody has to contribute in a big way, whatever way they are contributing to. And what was the second question?
A related question, Dr. Kumar, if I can ask you, the last time we spoke to you on Newsnight, you cautioned against the indiscriminate prescription by some in the medical fraternity of remdesivir. Now, another complaint or concern is the indiscriminate use of CT scans on young infants, young children as well, and also the use of steroids for mild COVID symptomatic cases. So, could you, for the benefit of viewers, once again reiterate what the correct position or attitude should be?
Yes, I think that's a great question, because last time I raised the question of remdesivir, and so is the position with another drug which is also tocilizumab. That's another drug which is being misused. It's a very, very high cost drug, and so is the indiscriminate use of CT scan. And let me tell you one thing. Let me tell you through the DD News channel that we should not be going for these injections, or we should not be looking for these injections, or we should not be asking the doctors to prescribe these injections. And the doctors should restrain and apply their knowledge and comprehensively, and should restrain in prescribing these drugs and the steroids also. There is no role of steroids in first 5 days of the illness, but we have seen the prescriptions where the steroids are started on day 1. That is not to be encouraged. Please, I would appeal to all the medical fraternity that this is not to be done. Similarly, indiscriminate use of CT scan is going to harm, is not going to be of any benefit to anybody. Everybody, whosoever you scan, will show some signs of pneumonitis, some signs of lung infection, some sign of lung consolidation. And that is no wonder. And we don't treat that.
Right.
What we treat is the patient's symptoms, patient's problems, like oxygen levels, how badly the patient's physiology is affected. We do not treat the anatomy. We treat the bad physiology, the adverse effects on the physiology, the physiology which has gone wrong because of the infection. That's what we treat. So as long as the physiology of the patient is remaining the same, that means oxygen levels are all right, patient is not having breathlessness, patient is not running a very high temperature, or temperature is not very disturbing, and the blood pressure, etc., pulse rate are fine, and the patient is reasonably stable, then we need not panic, and we should restrain in prescribing multiple drugs. We should not prescribe steroids indiscriminately, and we should not be running for investigation that get the CT scan. Or even people should realize that I get many a report for consultation that, sir, please look at my CT scan report. I said, who got it for you? We got it for ourselves. That's what the answer is. No, it is absolutely wrong. Let the doctor take a decision, and the doctors should take a rational decision as far as the drugs are concerned, as far as the investigations are concerned. Same is true with the blood investigation. So all this needs to be carefully planned and carefully evaluated. What is needed must be done. What is not needed and is not going to change the treatment protocol should not be done. That is my appeal to everyone.
Right.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Journalist Ravi Shankar, I'll give you the last word. Your thoughts on this so-called infodemic or misinformation being spread on social media, people resorting to self-medication without the prescription of a medical practitioner, number one. And number two, in your line of work, in your experience, from your vantage, do you think these extended curfews or lockdowns, are they having a real result on the ground as we speak in cities such as Mumbai?
I'll answer your second question first. Yes, there is a perceptible change. In my own hospital and in the hospitals across Bombay. You'll find the number of walk-in patients being referred for routine admissions are much less. What is disturbing is the availability of ICU beds. In none of the private hospitals you can get any bed today. They are chock-a-block, they're absolutely full, which in essence means that people are taking self-medication at home. When the saturations fall, when they become sick, when they become serious, that is the time they land up, and it becomes really very difficult to salvage them. The thing is, 80% of the people are asymptomatic. They can stay at home, home quarantine. They don't need to come to hospital. We advise all these people to do at least one video consultation with one of their family physicians or a chest physician, so that it's like seeing eyeball to eyeball and discussing the pros and cons of treatment. There are drugs available which we can give at home, like Fabiflu, ivermectin, and doxycycline, but certainly not to all the patients. There has to be specific indications for this. Unfortunately, like the other panelists said, people now demand remdesivir, they demand tocilizumab, they demand an HRCT to be done. And you've seen in the news now, remdesivir is spurious drug is available, it's flooding the market. So one has to be very careful. Self-medication, absolutely strictly no. Yes, you must consult a doctor. Let the doctor decide whether it's a mild, moderate or severe. If it is moderate and moderately severe, certainly hospitalization is the point.
Absolutely. Right, on that note, Ravi Shankar and Dr. Kumar. Yeah, please. Sure.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
As Director General of Health Services, it is my duty to inform you that I am going to issue necessary guidelines for restrained use of the drugs as well as the CT, as well as the blood investigations very soon. I have already finalized the rational use of remdesivir and other antiviral drugs. We are going to talk about very soon about steroids as well as the HRCT. And so I'm going to put out the relevant orders very soon so that the things are in order. My request would be that these are in the interest of the nation. These should be followed by each and every one of us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
On that note, Dr. Kumar and General Ravi Shankar, thank you so much for making time for us here at DD India. Appreciate it. Thank you. Right, shifting focus now. Prime Minister Modi on Monday spoke to Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission. Now, they discussed the COVID pandemic in India and Europe, including India's efforts to contain the second wave of the pandemic. Now, PM Modi appreciated the EU for mobilizing a quick support for India's fight against the virus. The two leaders recognized that the India-EU strategic partnership was seeing a renewed momentum since their last summit in July. The leaders agreed that the forthcoming India-EU leaders meeting on 8th May, which will be held via video conference, will offer an opportunity to impart further momentum to the already multifaceted India-EU relationship. Now, the India-EU leaders meeting will be the first meeting in the EU plus 27 format. The 8th May meeting will reflect a shared ambition for further strengthening the India-EU strategic partnership. Right, moving on, due to the second wave of the pandemic, the Ministry of Education has urged for the postponement of all offline exams scheduled in the month of May. Letter addressed to all the heads of centrally funded institutions, Secretary Higher Education Amit Khare has urged the institutions to postpone all offline exams scheduled in the month of May. The online examinations may, however, continue. The decision will be reviewed in the first week of June. Now, the institutions have been further advised to ensure that if anyone in the institution needs any assistance, it should be provided immediately possible and help so that he or she comes out of the distress at the earliest. Now, after the completion of counting, the EC declared final results of the assembly elections of 4 states and 1 UT. While TMC retained power in West Bengal, the BJP-led NDA in Assam and LDF in Kerala and the DMK-led MK Stalin wrest power from ADMK in Tamil Nadu. In Puducherry, NDA led by NR Congress from Indian National Congress. More in the next report.
The Trinamool Congress has secured 2/3 majority in West Bengal and is all set to form the government in the state once again. But during the election results, the state witnessed widespread violence and arson in many parts. The BJP office located near Arambagh was set ablaze Sunday evening. Taking the incidents seriously, West Bengal Governor Jagdeep Dhankar has summoned the DGP of the state. Dhankar tweeted, "Perturbed and worried at several reports of violence, arson and killings from various parts of state, party offices, houses and shops being attacked. Situation is alarming. Prompt action called for. Have conferred Mamata Banerjee for urgent action." West Bengal BJP President Dilip Ghosh said that 9 people have died in the past 24 hours in the violence that began post-election results. He submitted a request to the governor and has demanded action against the perpetrators of violence.
जो हिंसा हो रहा है, हम आज केवल प्रशासन के पास गुहार लगाने के लिए जा रहे हैं कि उनकी तरफ से हिंसा बंद हो। अच्छी बात है, ममता बनर्जी ने अपील की है पहली बार, अगर शांत हो जाए ठीक है, नहीं तो कल से हम भी शांतिपूर्वक आंदोलन करने के लिए रास्ता में उतरेंगे। उसके लिए जो भी करना पड़े, धरना देना पड़े, पथ अवरोध करना पड़े, सब करने के लिए हम तैयार हैं, क्योंकि बंगाल में हिंसा नहीं होनी चाहिए।
Meanwhile, after the victory in West Bengal, Mamata Banerjee was chosen as the leader of the legislative party. She will take oath as Chief Minister on 5th of May, while other cabinet ministers will take oath on the 6th.
Now we will hand over our necessary letter to the Governor of West Bengal, and again I am saying there is no hindrance of Mamata Banerjee to become the Chief Minister as per the Constitution.
On the other hand, after a landslide victory in Assam for the second time, Chief Minister Sarbananda Sonowal expressed his gratitude to the voters.
पिछले 5 साल के अंदर हमारे देश के परम आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी का जो मार्गदर्शन हमें मिला और उन्होंने जिस नीति के आधारित हमें प्रदेश को आगे बढ़ाने का सलाह दिया, सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका विश्वास, इस नीति के आधारित हम लोगों ने असम प्रदेश के सब वर्गों की लोगों को साथ में लिया और हमारे विकास की दिशा पर हम चलने लगे। असम की जनता ने फिर से दोबारा एनडीए सरकार असम में गठन करने के लिए हमें मौका दिया है।
Assam State Congress President Ripun Bora has resigned from his post following defeat of the Congress party in the polls. Down south in Tamil Nadu, Chief Minister Edappadi K. Palaniswamy has tendered his resignation following the defeat of AIADMK in the state assembly elections. After a landslide victory, the DMK will be ending its decade-long stint in the opposition and will now form the next government. DMK chief M.K. Stalin said that on May 4th, there will be a meeting of the newly elected MLAs to elect the leader of the legislative party. Stalin is expected to take oath as the next chief minister of the state on May 7th. In Kerala, led by Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan, the Left Democratic Front rewrote history by winning a second term in a state that has not returned an incumbent government in 4 decades. Bureau Report, TD India.
The Supreme Court on Monday concluded its hearing on an election commission plea challenging a Madras High Court order which criticized the poll body for failing to maintain COVID protocols during election campaigns. The EC told the Apex Court that the COVID situation did not worsen when rallies were taking place. It objected to the Madras High Court's observations, saying that the remarks led to relentless discussion by electronic media and the election commissioners were called murderers. Upset by the High Court's scathing remarks, the EC had on Saturday moved the Supreme Court on the ground that the remarks were uncalled for, blatant and disparaging. On 26 April, the Madras High Court had pulled up the EC for the surge in COVID cases during the second wave of the pandemic. It held the poll body singularly responsible for the spread of the coronavirus and even said that its officials might be booked for murder. The Supreme Court said it will pass an order this week. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will hold a virtual summit with his UK counterpart Boris Johnson on 4th May. Now, besides the COVID pandemic, the two leaders can be expected to discuss the deepening India-UK strategic partnership. Now, Johnson cancelled his India visit twice, first in January and most recently last month. A comprehensive roadmap 2030 will be launched at the summit talks between the Prime Ministers of India and the UK. It will pave the way for further expanding and deepening the India-UK cooperation over the next decade across the 5 key areas of people-to-people ties, trade, defence, climate action and healthcare. Both leaders will discuss COVID-19 cooperation and the global efforts to fight the pandemic. The Indian Foreign Ministry said the summit will also be an important opportunity to elevate the India-UK multifaceted strategic ties and enhance cooperation on regional and global issues. The India-UK strategic partnership was signed in 2004. The ties have been marked by regular high-level exchanges and growing convergences in diverse areas. Meanwhile, Indian Foreign Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar is to pay a 4-day visit to London starting Monday. He will take part in the G7 Foreign Ministers meeting. India has been invited as a guest country. He will also hold bilateral talks in London. The UK will share 1,000 more ventilators with India. This is in addition to the 200 ventilators, 495 oxygen concentrators and 3 oxygen generation units the UK announced as part of its assistance package last week. UK Foreign Minister Dominic Raab said on Twitter, "We are working closely with India to deliver the equipment they need to tackle this deadly wave of coronavirus. We are sending 1,000 surplus ventilators to support our Indian friends and help save lives." Bureau Report, DD India. All right, in some more national news, Supreme Court has asked the centre to rectify the deficit supply of oxygen to Delhi on or before midnight tonight. The top court also directed the centre to work with state governments to create a buffer stock of oxygen to be used for emergency purposes and decentralize locations of these reserves. The media cannot be stopped from reporting any court hearing and must report fully what happens in court. The Supreme Court said today, as the EC complained about being castigated without any evidence, but the Madras High Court last week remarked that the poll body should be booked for murder for not stopping political rallies in the COVID emergency. The apex court judges said that the Election Commission should treat it as a bitter pill in the right spirit, as something is observed in a larger public interest. Senior IPS officer Rashmi Shukla has filed a plea in the Bombay High Court on Monday, seeking no coercive action against her in connection with an FIR registered by Mumbai police in a case of illegal phone tapping and alleged leaking of sensitive documents related to police postings. Shukla's advocate sought an urgent hearing on the plea, saying the petitioner apprehends arrest in the case. Right, moving on, two suns will appear in 5 cities during the month of May. The real sun in the sky, of course, and a chrysanthemum-like depiction of it in a video by UK artist David Hockney. The 2.5-minute animation will be broadcast on digital billboards in some cities across the world. Now, remember, you cannot look at the sun or death for very long, suggests that the animation can be interpreted as a message of hope. Take a look at how people in the UK treated the artist's work as it lit up the Piccadilly Circus.
A giant piece of artwork by Britain's David Hockney, meant to inspire hope after a year of on-off lockdown, was on Saturday emblazoned across the iconic billboard of London's Piccadilly Circus. The work, called "Remember You Cannot Look at the Sun or Death for Very Long," is a symbol of hope and collaboration as the world awakens from its lockdowns to protect populations from COVID-19. It will be shown once a day for the month of May in London, New York, Tokyo, Seoul and Los Angeles. Britons who thronged the circus found the sunshine a bit refreshing.
I don't really know if it inspired a lot, to be honest, but it's just a bit of light, really, and I think at the moment it's just that sunshine thing just feels good with lockdown hopefully easing up.
It was great. I really loved it. It really had a very strong message and really strong visual as well.
On a Saturday night, Piccadilly Circus is normally thronging with tourists, but travel restrictions due to the pandemic starved it of the crowds that normally gather. Vaccination programs are helping pushing down COVID-19 infections and deaths in many countries, but some are battling a fresh wave. But as Hockney said, you cannot look at the sun or death for very long. Remember, there is still hope for a day without any gloom. Bureau Report, DD India.
And it's a wrap, but news continues here on DD India. You can catch all the latest updates on our social media, mobile and digital platforms. Don't forget, wear a mask, wash your hands and always practice social distancing. Join DD India's Mask Up campaign to beat COVID-19. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.